NR Academy is a professional training center based on modern and innovative educational standards. The main goal of our academy is to reveal the potential of each student, support their academic and personal development, and show the right direction leading to success. We believe that success is not a coincidence, but the result of proper education, continuous development, and purposeful activity. NR Academy provides students with not only theoretical knowledge, but also practical skills that can be applied in real life. Our educational programs are prepared based on modern methodologies and innovative approaches and presented in an interactive and result-oriented manner. Each student is given an individual approach and a development strategy is formulated in accordance with their goals. Our academy organizes high-quality trainings on applicant preparation, psychology, personal development, public speaking and communication skills, body language, emotional intelligence, and professional development programs for trainers. These programs develop the knowledge and skills of participants, creating conditions for them to succeed in both their academic and professional lives. The main advantages of NR Academy are professional and experienced trainers, modern and innovative teaching methods, certified programs, online and face-to-face learning opportunities, as well as a practical and results-based approach. The education model offered at our academy is specially designed to support students' future career success. Our mission is to add value to society through knowledge and development, and our vision is to become one of the leading and influential education brands in the region.
NR Academy provides students with not only education, but also self-confidence, leadership, and a successful future. Don't leave your future to chance. Take the first step on the path to success today. Develop your knowledge with NR Academy, discover your potential, and achieve your goals with confidence. Nurey Rahimli is a trainer and education entrepreneur working in the field of modern education and personal development. He approaches education not only as a means of transferring theoretical knowledge, but also as a development process that shapes a person's mindset and prepares them for real life. The NR Academy he created is based on an innovative educational model, and the main goal here is to develop both academic and personal skills of students. In addition to preparing applicants, the Academy provides training in areas such as psychology, personal development, public speaking, communication skills, body language, and emotional intelligence. Nurey Rahimli's approach is based on individual development. He individually assesses the potential of each student, reveals their strengths, and purposefully shapes their development path. The main principle in his work philosophy is practical learning and result-oriented development. That is, the goal is not just to provide information, but to transform that knowledge into skills that can be used in real life. In general, Nurey Rahimli acts as an educational leader who aims to support young people in self-knowledge, self-confidence, and making better decisions in their future lives. NR Academy, your reliable partner on the path to success. Contact 077 345 50 20. He understands that true freedom and power exist only in his inner world, and that anyone who is able to use it can radically change his life. He understands that he cannot completely control external events, but his internal reactions, habits, and thoughts are in his hands. Every moment, every small choice, and every decision shapes his inner strength. Now he does not leave his life to chance. On the contrary, he writes his future with every step he takes. At this stage, the person no longer operates from the mindset of, I want to change, but shifts into the reality of, I am already changing. Action is no longer a plan. It becomes part of identity itself. Daily choices are no longer random. They turn into pieces of a deliberate direction. The person starts to understand not just what they are doing, but why they are doing it. At the same time, what used to feel like stability is now recognized as a disguised form of stagnation. That comfort zone loses its illusion of safety. In its place appears a discomfort that comes with growth. But this discomfort no longer stops the person. It starts pushing them forward instead. The person begins to hear their inner voice more clearly. The doubts that once held them back now feel like temporary thoughts rather than truths. They no longer obey them. They observe them. This shift creates a major turning point. Thoughts are no longer the controller, but something being controlled. From this point onward, life is no longer built on perfect planning, but on a continuous system of growth. The person realizes that real change does not come from motivation, but from systems. and systems are built through small, consistent actions repeated every day. At the same time, what used to feel like stability is now recognized as a disguised form of stagnation. That comfort zone loses its illusion of safety. In its place appears a discomfort that comes with growth. But this discomfort no longer stops the person. It starts pushing them forward instead. The person begins to hear their inner voice more clearly. The doubts that once held them back now feel like temporary thoughts rather than truths. They no longer obey them. They observe them. This shift creates a major turning point. Thoughts are no longer the controller, but something being controlled. From this point onward, life is no longer built on perfect planning, but on a continuous system of growth. The person realizes that real change does not come from motivation, but from systems. And systems are built through small, consistent actions repeated every day. At this stage, change stops being something the person is trying to maintain and becomes something they naturally embody. There is less internal resistance because decisions are no longer debated endlessly in the mind. Instead, action becomes quicker, cleaner, and more aligned with purpose. The focus also shifts from external validation to internal alignment. What others think loses its controlling power because the person now measures progress by clarity, discipline, and consistency rather than approval. This creates a stronger sense of direction and emotional stability. Mistakes still happen, but their meaning changes completely. They are no longer emotional setbacks. They become feedback loops. Each mistake refines judgment, sharpens awareness, and strengthens future decisions. Nothing is wasted anymore. Everything becomes part of development. Over time, identity solidifies. The person no longer needs to convince themselves that they are changing, because evidence replaces belief. Their daily actions already reflect the new version of themselves, and in this state, growth is no longer a goal. It becomes the baseline. This stage also brings a quieter but deeper shift. Urgency disappears. The person no longer feels like they are behind or late. Comparison loses its emotional charge because their focus is no longer on competing timelines, but on personal consistency. Patience becomes a skill, not a struggle. They understand that meaningful progress is rarely visible in the short term, but always accumulates in the background. This removes the pressure to rush and replaces it with steady, grounded execution. At the same time, emotional reactions become more controlled. Instead of being pulled by every thought or feeling, the person learns to create a gap between stimulus and response. In that gap, choice becomes possible, and in that choice, freedom grows. Life becomes less about dramatic transformation and more about quiet mastery. Small decisions, repeated daily, start building an identity that feels stable, intentional, and self-directed. And without even realizing it, the person is no longer becoming someone new. They are already living as that version. At this point, discipline no longer feels like effort. It feels like structure. The person doesn't rely on bursts of motivation anymore because consistency has replaced emotional fluctuation. What used to require willpower now happens almost automatically. Attention becomes sharper and more selective. The mind no longer gets dragged into every distraction or emotional trigger. Instead, it learns to filter. What builds me? What breaks me? What moves me forward? That simple internal filtering system changes everything. Relationships and environment also start to shift naturally. Without forcing it, the person gravitates toward people, habits, and spaces that match their new mindset. Misalignment becomes uncomfortable, not normal. There is also a growing sense of ownership over life. Not in a controlling way, but in a grounded understanding that every outcome is connected to previous choices. This removes victim thinking and replaces it with responsibility. And in that responsibility, something powerful appears. Calm confidence. Not loud, not performative, just steady. At this level, confidence is no longer something the person tries to build. It becomes something that naturally emerges from lived evidence. They don't need to feel ready anymore, because readiness is no longer the requirement for action. Doubt still appears, but it loses authority. Instead of stopping decisions, it becomes background noise. The person learns to move with uncertainty rather than waiting for it to disappear. This creates a new kind of momentum, stable, not emotional. Time also starts to feel different. Days are no longer measured by mood swings or productivity spikes, but by consistency. Even small progress now feels meaningful because it is part of a larger pattern of growth. The person becomes less reactive and more intentional in every area of life. Responses are no longer automatic emotional reactions, but chosen actions aligned with long-term direction. And slowly, life stops feeling like something happening to them, and starts feeling like something being built by them. At this point, the person no longer separates thinking from living. Thoughts, decisions, and actions start to merge into one continuous flow. There is less overanalysis, more direct execution. Self-trust becomes the core foundation, not because everything is guaranteed to go right, but because the person has proven to themselves that they can adapt, adjust, and continue no matter what happens. Failure loses its emotional weight completely. It is no longer a signal to stop, but a signal to refine direction. This shift removes fear-based hesitation and replaces it with curiosity-driven action. Even ambition changes shape. It is no longer about chasing something distant, but about deepening what is already being built. Progress becomes less about speed and more about depth. And in that depth, the person realizes something simple but powerful. They were never stuck. They were just learning how to move differently. From here, clarity becomes more important than intensity. The person no longer tries to do more, but instead focuses on doing what actually matters. This removes unnecessary pressure and creates a more efficient way of living. Energy is no longer wasted on internal conflict. Instead of arguing with thoughts, the person redirects attention toward action. This reduces mental noise and increases execution quality. Identity keeps stabilizing through repetition. Each consistent action reinforces who the person is becoming. Over time, behavior no longer feels like effort, it feels like alignment. External chaos still exists, but it no longer defines internal state. The person learns to stay steady even when conditions are unstable. And from that steadiness, a new level of awareness begins to form. The person no longer reacts to every shift in the environment, but chooses where to place their attention and energy with intention. This creates a sense of control that is not forced, but earned through consistency. Decisions become simpler, not because life becomes easier, but because the person is no longer divided internally. When values are clear, choices stop feeling overwhelming. There is less hesitation, more direction. At the same time, the need to prove something to others fades away. The person is no longer driven by validation, but by alignment with their own standards. This quiet confidence changes how they move, speak, and show up in every situation. Challenges still exist, but they are no longer seen as obstacles. They become part of the path itself. Each difficulty strengthens adaptability, and each uncertainty sharpens awareness. And eventually, the person understands something deeper. Growth is not a phase that ends. It is a continuous process of refining, adjusting, and expanding. There is no final version, only a better, more aware version with each step forward. In this state, life is no longer something to figure out all at once. It becomes something to build, step by step, with clarity, intention, and consistency. And as this way of living deepens, the person stops searching for a final destination. The idea of arriving somewhere fades, because they understand that growth is not a point, it's a direction. They become more present. Not in a passive way, but in a focused, aware state where each action is intentional. The past no longer creates regret, and the future no longer creates anxiety. Both lose their grip because attention is anchored in what can be done now. There is also a stronger sense of simplicity. The person no longer overcomplicates decisions, relationships, or goals. What matters becomes clear, and what doesn't naturally falls away.